big problems become big problems, you let small problems sit.
That's correct.
All right, Ben, put your phone down. We're live.
All right, here we go. Hold on. All right.
Oh, great.
Got it. Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going, everybody? Yes, we have video today. Well, we did. Good Lord, this thing. Oh, boy. Well, there's times when you realize that we are the show in the back by the bathrooms of the Sun Times.
Hey, what's Harold doing over there? Hold on.
I was showing it to somebody today. All right, I think we're good. How's it going, everybody?
There, you belong with me.
All right. Your Ben Joravsky show for Wednesday, February 19th is just moments away. Good Lord, this video thing. All right, but before we get into that, we got to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this awkward little program we have here. Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8.
That's correct.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9.
That's correct.
The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
That's correct.
And of course, today's Ben Joravsky show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor.
I'm not a perfect person.
Let's hear that song of the day, Benny J.
Well, you know, in honor of Blago getting released, I think it's only appropriate we do a medley of Elvis songs because, you know, Blago's a huge man. You didn't know that because you're too young.
I learned yesterday.
Yeah, Blago's a huge man. So my favorite Elvis song, no question about it. Viva Las Vegas. And then there's a little slower song. Wise men.
Yeah, that's my favorite Elvis song.
Say only fools rush in. I love that song. And I can't help. I love Elvis, man. That's something that Blago and I have in common. Mm-hmm. Love Elvis.
The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Wednesday, February 19th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, legendary Chicago journalist Monroe Anderson returns. We welcome legendary Chicago musician Billy Branch. And also making his return, committeeman Peter Janko. And now your host, Ben, flip that buttermilk carton around. Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Everybody, Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this What Else? Blago Wednesday. And here's why. Everywhere I go these days, or everywhere I go for the last 24 hours, it's blago. The story was breaking yesterday as we came on the air. We talked a lot about it yesterday. Now we've had 24 hours to marinate in, and there's even more to talk about. Of course, let's go back to the basics. President Donald John Trump commuted the sentence of former Governor Rod Blagojevich, who was in jail, federal prison he was sentenced for 14 years. He'd already spent 8 years in prison for extensionally extorting money or attempting to extort money from people who do business with the state of Illinois or people who are interested in filling the vacancy created when the Senate vacancy created when Barack Obama went to the White House. All right? That's what he went to prison for. And I must start by saying this. I said it yesterday. I've said it before. Donald John Trump was right. Yes, indeed, D. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth, but Donald John Trump was right to commute the sentence. 8 years is more than enough for the crimes that Blago committed. I say that even though so many of my brothers and sisters in the journalistic business are outraged. I think that Donald John Trump was right. 8 years was more than enough for the charges against Blago. That said, good God, Blago looks great. Can you believe it, D? Last night, my wife and I were out. We're eating a dinner in a bar, and up in the TV above the bar was the TV. The sound was down, and there was Blago in the, I think the airport in Denver on his way home to Chicago. And my wife was like, good God, man, he looks as fit as a fiddle. He was like, he was in great shape. His hair, of course, was freaking perfect. By the way, time for a little headline battle here. We like to do this on the Ben Joravsky Show. We compare headlines on big news of the day between the Sun-Times and the Tribune.
I love headline battle.
Headline battle's a great game. I just have to say, more often than not, I believe my beloved Bright One is the winner of headline battle. But more often than not, Dennis weighs in with the Tribune.
I think in the podcast world, you would call it Battle of the Headlines. It's more of a segment name.
Wow, battle of the headlines.
Check it.
Anyway,
Battle of the Headlines.
so which one do you want first? I like. So which one do you want first, Tribune or Sun-Times?
Lay it on with the Tribune.
Okay, here's the Chicago Tribune headline, and I'll try to get through it. Keep in mind, I didn't get much sleep last night, so I hope I make it through without falling asleep. Here's the headline. Is the camera working?
Yes.
Okay. Blagojevich released from federal prison. Trump commutes ex-governor's 14-year sentence.
I like that. To the point. You know what you're getting into when you read it. Good job, Tribune.
Okay. Here's my beloved Bright One, home delivered every day. By the way, the Tribune's home delivered too. Here we go. All right, with a picture of Blagojevich looking great, fit as a fiddle, as my wife said.
Here, let me. Oh yeah, read it, and I'll show everybody on the camera.
A free Maine. A lot of people are not like, I don't get it, man. Mane, like a mane of hair. You know, Rod's got great hair. A free man, a free Maine. You put the E in the end. Who are these geniuses? They're like poets. These poets, these headline writer poets. And then underneath is the informational headline that you love. Disgraced ex-governor Rod Blagojevich released from prison after President Trump commutes 14-year sentence. So it's like the attention grabber right underneath the picture of Rod Blagojevich looking fit as a fiddle. And then my favorite, this has absolutely nothing to do nothing. There's a kid in the background going, oh my God, what's going on? Anyway.
Looks like Macaulay Culkin.
It does. Anyway, I think Dennis agrees the Sun-Times wins again.
No. Chicago, you get caught in a little corner when you do these puns, and then you got to top yourself at the next pun. And free Maine? I don't know, guys. Maybe jumping the shark there.
I was free Maine in Paris.
Oh,
sorry,
boy.
That's a song from the 60s, I want to say. Anyway, he looked great.
Chicago Sun-Times, quite the pun issuers.
Now, speaking of great, let's give a shout out to Justin Horowitz, our guest on the show yesterday. This is while the news was breaking.
Horowitz,
political strategist. I know he's listening out there right now. He was absolutely right on target. He explained the play. Here's the play, people. All right, I know you're thinking, like, all you Trump lovers are out there, well, he let him go because for humane reasons. Negatory. He let him go because he knew that Rod Blagojevich was going to be a very potent and powerful weapon in his reelection campaign. And no sooner said than done. Just like Justin said. Justin said on the show yesterday, you watch. Blagojevich is going to immediately go on the attack, attacking Democrats, praising Trump, talking about how Trump is a champion of criminal justice reform and how Trump is releasing people who have been unfairly and unjustly sentenced to long years in prison, probably call themselves political prisoners. You know what I'm saying? Like Trump is some kind of liberator and Trump's the real reformer. He goes, you watch, and it's going to be a pitch essentially to black voters. Coupled with, remember that Super Bowl ad? Justin didn't mention this, but there was a Super Bowl ad that Trump aired, which showed Alice Marie Johnson, a black woman from Memphis, Tennessee, who was he released. He commuted her sentence on a drug trafficking charge to show that he had great sympathy for black people. It was part of it. This is part of his effort to win over the black vote. And Justin predicted that he would. That's the whole purpose of releasing Blagojevich early. And sure enough, Rod Blagojevich delivered. Dee's got some tape of the press conference that Blagojevich held at his house today. All the reporters, like classic Chicago press crew, get there. They're driving down to Wilson Avenue, just not far from where young Dennis lives, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, you live about.
Okay, don't give everybody my specific address.
I won't give the specific address, but if you just want to stop in someday, ding dong, hi D, I'm here. Dennis lives about maybe 3/4 of a mile to the west of where Blago lives. Anyway, all the reporters were there. Blago came out on the porch where he always gives these press statements, and he just flawlessly extolled the virtues, in quotes, of Donald John Trump. So yes, you were right, Justin. That was the play. The play was to turn Blagojevich into, what does he call himself? A Trumpocrat. And now he's going to pretend as though Donald Trump is the reformer.
Oh, my God. I hope that doesn't catch on.
This is what I say. Justin and I have a little disagreement on this one. Justin thinks it'll work. I don't think it'll work. I have more confidence in the voters. Now, I'm older than Justin, so I should be the cynical, jaded one who believes that the voters are so simple-minded that they'll fall for anything. It should be me who's saying that. And Justin, he's young, he's idealistic. He should believe that voters have more sense. But Justin, I don't think it's going to work. I'm just putting that out there. I think the voters are too smart to fall for it. I'll tell you what else that was on my mind. I couldn't sleep last night. You want to know why, D? I'll tell you why.
Can't sleep last night, can't talk this morning.
I think there's a correlation. I was so excited to see what the Tribune was going to say about this one. I was up reading a book, waiting for the sound of the newspaper landing on my front porch at about 4:30 in the morning. This is what I heard. That was the sound. Wait, it's more like 3 newspapers, so hold on. The sound of the...
Oh, my goodness.
No, but actually, now that I think about it, they don't arrive at the same time, so it's like boom, boom, boom. That's the sound I heard. I rushed outside. I took the Chicago Tribune. I read Johnny Cass. I read the editorial page because, okay, just so you know, the Tribune's editorial page and John Cass share a common passion. They can't stand Blagojevich. They think Blagojevich is the epitome of all that's wrong with Illinois and Democratic politics. At the same time, they wear the MAGA hat. They're huge Trump supporters. They love Donald John Trump. All right? So I was like, all right, how are they going to work their way around this baby? It's their hero, their leader, the shot caller who let Blago out of prison. They let the man that they say is the symbol of all that's wrong in Illinois. So how did they do it? Well, they just did it a very skillful way, D. They just kind of avoided mentioning Trump. They on and on and on about how horrible Blago is. At some point, the Tribune mentioned, yes, by the way, Donald Trump commuted his sentence. Then back to how horrible Blago is. This is going to be so funny to think about the Tribune and their right-wing columnists joining forces with Blagojevich to help reelect Donald Trump. I'm just looking forward to those rallies. They're all wearing their little MAGA hats on stage with Donnie Trump. Let me just say this. What Donald Trump did was not just out of feeling the goodness of his heart, because he felt compassion for Blagojevich and his family. Oh, no, he had 2 points. One, Blagojevich and he shared the same enemies. Essentially, the same federal prosecutors who sent Blagojevich to prison were the ones who were going after Trump. So it was important to undercut their case by showing somehow or other that Blagojevich was an innocent victim. And Blagojevich will be playing that theme. Dennis will have the tape in a little while ago. So that was part number one. Part number two was to set up probably for the pardoning of Roger Stone and other felons in the Trump administration or in the Trump universe. That's probably to come. And then third, essentially, Trump and Blagojevich were accused of the same crime, extortion. In the case of Blagojevich, it was extorting campaign funds from people who did business with the state. And in the case of Donald John Trump, it was extorting a comment from the president of Ukraine that they were investigating Joe Biden. It was extortion. So if Donald Trump minimizes the offense of extortion by letting Blagojevich go, well, how can you hold Trump accountable for the same crimes? Very simple. So now extortion is no longer a crime in Donald Trump's universe. I want everybody to think about this. Donald Trump, let's see, he has defied congressional subpoenas. He has ordered that White House aides not testify in congressional hearings. He has denounced in tweets by name prosecutors, witnesses. He's fired people in the White House who've dared to appear before Congress and testify under oath. He's punished them. He's attempted to intimidate anybody who would dare to speak out against him. He has attempted to intimidate the Congress people who dared to investigate him. This is gross abuse of power. Not one word from the Tribune. Not one word from the right. Not one word from the Republicans. Meanwhile, they're outraged, I tell you, at Kim Foxx for Smollettgate. Outraged. I wonder what Blagojevich's position will be on Kim. You know, Blagojevich was, we're going to get into this when he starts talking on about injustices in the world and how he's a political
Maybe he watched
person.
that Empire show while he was, in the slammer.
Yeah, I bet you there's not one.
I like that show.
I wonder if Blagojevich is going to join the Tribune and Trump in calling for the ouster of Kim Foxx. Strange bedfellows these days. Politics is always interesting in the city of Chicago. Meanwhile, J.B. Pritzker is giving a budget address. He's dealing with the real substantial problems that the state of Illinois faces to a large degree because of the ineptitude, incompetence, corruption of Rod Blagojevich and Bruce Rauner. Oh, my God. Poor J.B. Pritzker. Nobody's paying attention. The general attitude is boring. Let's go back to Blago, Blago, Blago. Anyway, we're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about Blago, 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 and Pritzker, and a lot of other things. But first, wait a minute. I have to say who's on the show today. We have a great show today.
Can you please get sleep before the show? I know you think it's cute, but it's not.
I got about 2 hours.
Guys.
I got 2 hours, man. Monroe Anderson will be here. Billy Branch will be here. And Peter Janko will be here as well. But first, the news with the doctor, the young man from Alton, Illinois, that they call Dr. Doobie.
How's it going, everybody? I got about 8 hours of sleep last night.
Fresh as a daisy.
You're in good hands with the doctor, all right? Yes, more.
Not a doctor.
More Blago bailout fallout. But first, yes, we have to talk about our current governor, J.B. Pritzker's 2020 budget address.
It's been more than a decade since the last contribution was made to the Rainy Day Fund, and it was almost entirely wiped out in 2017 under my predecessor. The budget I am introducing today begins to restore it, dedicating $100 million to the Rainy Day Fund over the next 16 months.
Huh? Okay,
Stop.
you know what? On second hand, let's talk about Blago.
Oh, come on. The rainy day fund is important.
Sorry, Pritzker, the governor from about a decade ago is getting top billing. By the way, you may want to get used to that for a little bit. All right, free at last, free at last. Thank Trump almighty. He's free at last.
That's good.
Former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich's 14-year sentence has been commuted. As we mentioned, Blago held a press conference outside of his Chicago home today. We have the audio. Shout out to the Washington Post for that. Let's unpack this press conference. Let's not waste any more time here. And hey, what do you know? We begin with a little out of jail humor.
It's been a long time since I've shaved with a normal razor, and it takes a little practice. I'm sorry about that. I got to keep dabbing the...
So I have to apologize for his tardiness. He couldn't find where I put his socks this morning.
Lots changed in the nearly 8 years that I've been here.
That was good.
It's a little out of jail humor from Rod Blagojevic. So he cut himself shaving and he was dabbing.
It was got a little gross there about 20 minutes into it. He would pull up and dab his chin, and
by the way,
napkin was like bloody as hell.
That's happened to me, so I can really, relate with him. You don't have to worry about it because you never shave.
Well, I shaved my head, I shaved my neck. So
Valid point.
all right, well, we got more audio to play here, so let's just go through it. Ben, weigh in, wake up and weigh in. Here we go.
We want to express our most profound and everlasting gratitude to President Trump. How do you properly thank someone who's given you back the freedom that was stolen from you? He didn't have to do this. He's a Republican president. I was a Democratic governor. And doing this does nothing to help his politics. President Trump is a man who is tough and outspoken, but he also has a kind heart. And this is an act of kindness, and I also believe it's the beginning of the process to actually turn an injustice into a justice.
Wow. Let's just unpack that. By the way, this is to say, Blago is a master of the art of BS. He's always been. I followed his career since he was a state rep back in the day. His congressional office was just down the street from me, D. And he, of course, his career was launched, just to remind everybody, by former Alderman Richard Mell, former powerful Democratic committeeman Richard Mell. He's Richard Mell's son-in-law. And so he owes his career in politics to the Democratic machine. Just always remember that, folks, okay? And he's just a master at the art of BS. So just think about what he said. He's thanking Donald Trump, and this doesn't help him in any way with his politics. And then he goes on to say how Trump is wise, and Trump is tough, and Trump but has a great heart, totally helping Trump with his politics. Justin was right, people. This is all about politics. Donald Trump released Rod Blagojevich from prison precisely because he knew Rod Blagojevich would become an advocate for him in his reelection campaign. Rod Blagojevich is essentially put on the MAGA hat. And he is just going to go around testifying to Trump and saying what a great guy Trump's doing, and he's going to say he's doing it as a Democrat. The whole point is like
Trumpocrat.
He's a Trumpocrat. So the whole point is that there's going to be people dumb enough to fall for it. And I got to say this. This is the big divide between me and Justin. Justin says he thinks it's going to work because the people of the state of Illinois, he's so cynical to be so young. But I say they're too smart to fall for it. But I don't know. He's so good. Just listening to Blago right there. On one hand, say, Trump gains nothing politically from this, and then with the second breath shows you exactly what Trump gets for it politically. Masterful job,
Hard years
Blago.
for Patty and for me. I spent my first 32 months in prison, nearly 3 years behind what the inmates call the razor wire, the barbed wire fence. You can't go near that fence. If you do, there are prison guards there armed with machine guns who have the discretion to shoot you. I didn't go near that fence. The buildings behind that fence where the inmates live and sleep are squalid places. They're cold and dark like tombs. There were about 900 inmates there. Drug dealers, cartel members, gangbangers, bank robbers. There were men there who committed murder, con artists, a lot of sex offenders. About 2% of the population were in the so-called white-collar category. For most of my time there, my home was a 6 foot by 8 foot prison cell with 4 cement walls, a big heavy iron door that can shut you in, a small window with bars on it, and a bunk bed. I slept on the top bunk.
Well, prison's no joke. And this, again, folks.
He called top bunk.
He got top bunk. By the way, all the people in prison, he mentioned con artists, of which he is one. And although you just don't go to prison if you're just a con artist, you got to be caught. And, he was pretty much caught, folks. I hate to say it. I mean, he did shake down people. Now, whether you believe he deserved 14 years is a whole other issue. I don't believe he deserved 14 years. But, yes, it's true. Life is very tough in prison. That's absolutely true. But he did do the crime. I'm just saying. What's that old line, D? If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. So now he's there crying about it, how rough it is in prison. Hey, man, no one told you to shake down the hospital operators who are looking for state contracts. Nobody told you to shake down all the different Democratic wannabes who wanted Barack Obama's seat. Nobody told you to do that. So, I mean, I hear you. It's really tough in prison, and there's a lot of people who are unjustly in prison, particularly for those drug laws, which, by the way, you did absolutely nothing to fight when you had the power to do something about it, Rod Blagojevich. I didn't see you pushing to say legalize reefer. No, now that you're out, you're a big believer. Having experienced prison, you're a big believer in the need to have criminal justice reform. I appreciate that. I remember Chuck Colson in the Nixon White House was the same way. But when you had power, you didn't do anything about it. So I have a hard time really feeling sorry for the guy because he did the crime. Sorry, D.
Often late at night, I would look through that window and past those bars, out into the night sky, and I think of home. I think of my children. I think of Patty. Sometimes I could almost
Is that my
feel her
uncle?
near me. I would say to myself, one day I'll make it back to you. And hold your hand, sweetheart.
Woman of substance.
And I would remember what a gracious thing it's been to walk through life with you.
Wow. I'll tell you what, folks, you listen to that, now you know why you elected him twice. Not once, but twice as your governor. And the second time around, it was pretty obvious he was up to no good. You elected him anyway. The man is pretty good at giving a speech, D. He's standing up. One more time. Dude just got out of federal prison. Think about it. Think about this, folks. He just got finished telling you how rough it is. Talked about the wire, the barbed wire, the razor wire, the guards with the machine guns, the little block that he's living in. It talks about how horrific it was, but he's just like orating without a. There's no. I bet I don't have the video. Does he even have notes? Does he just speak? Yeah.
He's riffing.
I'll just say this about Rod Blagojevich. He's truly gifted. He's one of the most gifted con artists I've seen in a long, long time.
All right, more clips to go here.
So again, on behalf of Patty and Amy and Annie and me, we want to again express our deepest gratitude to President Trump.
There we
like
go.
I said, as a Republican president and a Democratic governor, he didn't have to do this.
Yeah, no.
But President Trump is not a typical politician.
That's right.
That's
He's
for
tough,
sure.
he's outspoken, he gets things done. He's a problem solver in a business where too many politicians don't want to solve problems. All they want to do is play politics.
Oh,
and
he
get
never
nothing
plays
done for the people.
politics.
He's got I'm a Trumpocrat.
The Trumpocrats, that's right.
If I have the ability to vote, I'm going to vote for him. Well, I don't know that they'll allow me to vote, but I'll get into that in a minute. But let me just say that
Chicago great again.
There
our
it
president
is.
is also a man with a kind heart.
Hey, Rod, you don't have to suck up to him anymore. You're out. You can do whatever you want. You're free. By the way, this one more time. All they do. Listen to how he contrasts Trump from everybody else. All they do, he says, they being presumably the Democrats, do is play politics. As if he isn't playing politics at that very moment. This is all political games, people. Remember what Justin told you yesterday. This is the play. All right? Donald Trump released Rod Blagojevich precisely because he wanted Rod Blagojevich to go on the stump and say exactly what Rod Blagojevich is saying right there. Rod Blagojevich is paying Trump back. Now, if Trump released him just out of the goodness of his heart because he thought it was the right thing to do, that 14 years is too much, then Rod Blagojevich was simply, all he had to do was say, thank you, Donald Trump, and then leave the limelight. Man, this is payback time, and it's all political, folks. Don't be dumb. Come on. Rob Blagojevich pretty much admitted he's a con artist. Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't say Rob Blagojevich, am a con artist. He said they're con artists behind bars. But, folks, you all know in the state of Illinois, city of Chicago, that Rob Blagojevich is a master of the con game. He's playing it right now.
He sees wrong and he tries to right it, just like he did in the case of Alice Marie Johnson. You know who she is, the grandmother from Alabama who served 21 years in prison on a life sentence as a first-time nonviolent drug offender. A life sentence as a first-time nonviolent drug offender.
The first step, let a lot of them come.
Alice Marie Johnson's case is probably one of the better illustrations that shows how the federal criminal justice system disproportionately discriminates against African Americans and people of color, and how the 1994 crime bill has led to the over-sentencing and to the creation of what the author Michelle Alexander has called the new Jim Crow in America.
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about?
That's right. Dump the Clintons.
All right, there you go. Michelle Alexander. Folks, you should know this. She wrote a book, The New Jim Crow in America. It was one of the most important books of our time in terms of talking about how the Clinton crime bill and the war on drugs have incarcerated thousands and thousands of African Americans in this country, have destroyed families, destroyed lives, destroyed communities. It's a very important book. It is a book, of course, that Donald Trump has, his entire life has been in opposition to all of the changes that Michelle Alexander has called for. It's beyond irony at this particular moment that Rob Blagojevich would invoke that book and those themes and her powerful assault on the criminal justice system to extol the virtues of Donald Trump. Only an electorate that isn't paying attention, that is completely susceptible to a con game would fall for it. But that's the game that's being played at this moment.
Oh, hold on. Got more audio here, guys. Just hang tight. And here we go.
1994 crime bill passed by my fellow Democrats before I got to Congress. Fortunately, as soon as President Trump learned of the injustice against Alice Marie, he immediately put a stop to it, and he sent her home to her family. And fortunately, because this is a president who gets things done, through his leadership and with the help of organizations like Cut 50, President Trump was able to build the necessary bipartisan support to pass the historic First Step Act, a new law that begins the process of reforming a broken criminal justice system and putting an end to the racist injustice caused by that racist 1994 crime bill. Now, as for me, obviously, I've got 10,000 reasons to be thankful to President Trump. I'm obviously thankful to be home, to have my freedom back, to just be able to hold my wife's hand. But most of all, I'm thankful to you, Mr. President, for giving my daughters their father back. My daughters are growing up, and the day is not too far off when they will go out into the world on their own. Now I wish I could slow down time. But no matter where their life's journey may lead, they will always take with them the realization that the kindest gift they've ever received in their lives came from you. Thank you, Mr. President, for what you've done for me, but better, far, far better, thank you for what you've done for them.
Wow. Coming to a Trump commercial sometime soon. And remember, this is not political, right? This is not political in any way. You know, mentioning Michelle Alexander, likening himself to black political prisoners. This is not political in any way. Rob Blagojevich is just speaking from his heart. Donald Trump, the liberator. Monroe Anderson has entered the building. Monroe Anderson has entered the building. We'll see if Monroe Anderson, we got to play some of this stuff from Monroe, see if he too is convinced by the rhetoric, the passionate speech of Rob Blagojevich. Maybe Monroe, who's been consistently critical of Donald Trump, will now say, Ben, I was wrong. Rob Blagojevich was right. Donald Trump is a liberator of black people. By the way, I just want to point out, we had Sparky Rose on the show last week. He's an expert in all things marijuana. Donald Trump and the Trump administration are the ones who continue to make marijuana a federal offense. There's people still in federal prison because it's against the law, the federal law. No matter what they do in Illinois, it's against the law in this country to possess marijuana, okay? So if Donald Trump really was a believer in the criminal justice reform, he would legalize marijuana on a federal level. That would we do right now, and then let people out of prison who are unjustly in prison for this corrupt war on drugs. Now, by the way, if he did that, I would really welcome. I don't even care what political ramifications there would be. Monroe Anderson, I would be like Rod Blagojevich. I would say, thank you, Mr. President.
Careful what you say, because he may do that.
Well, he may do it. You know what? And if that's what it takes to get some sensible changes in our drug policy, I would have to thank the President. I don't know if I would vote for him, but I still have to thank him.
All right, we got one more piece of audio to play from Rod Blagojevich's press conference this afternoon. Let's hear it. Wait a minute. What is this?
Well, we didn't get it right the last time.
It's a Bloomberg ad. How'd this get in there?
2020.
This guy's everywhere.
Happy holidays. I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
Oh, my God. What the hell? You can't escape this Bloomberg. You got in the middle of my... All right, here we go.
I'd like to thank a few people real quick. I'd like to thank my old friend, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, for his voice and for his help and for his support. Yeah. I want to thank my friend and former colleague in the Congress, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., for his friendship and his support. I want to thank Patty's dad, for Alderman Mel, Richard Mel, for his love and support to our daughters and to his daughter, Patty. I want to thank this mystery man, a young man who brought all this about. I just met him yesterday, and this is Mark Vargas. He's quite a guy, and he's the kind of guy who can get you out of prison if you find yourself stuck there. And I'm really grateful to his efforts and what he's done on my behalf. The scriptures teach us and history shows that in the long run, right defeated will in the end overcome wrong triumphant. And as Dr. Martin Luther King used to say, truth crushed to earth will one day rise again, because no lie can live forever. I'm returning home today from a long exile, a freed political prisoner.
Wow. Oh, my God. Let's just, first of all, thanking Jesse Jackson and Jesse Jackson Jr. I just want to point out that Jesse Jackson, he wasn't so nice about Jesse Jackson Jr. back in 2008 when he was wheeling and dealing with the Obama White House, or the incoming Obama White House, if you will, to try to figure out what he could get from Jesse Jackson Jr. to appoint him to fill the vacancy as senator in Illinois. So it's interesting. Now he loves Jesse Jackson Jr.
Well, he had a lot of time to think about it.
I see it, 8 years to think about it. You're right, Monroe. That's interesting. He's like thanking every black person in the world he can, because I just want to tell you folks one more time, this is the play. This is the play. Rod Blagojevich's job from here on out is to be an advocate for Donald John Trump in the black community. Somehow or other, they've decided that the way to get black voters to vote for Donald John Trump is to have Rod Blagojevich, like in his situation, his Rod Blagojevich, who was in federal prison for shaking people down, to what? Nelson Mandela? Martin Luther King in the Birmingham jail?
No, he was quoting the new Jim Crow.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Okay.
Michelle Alexander and Rod Blagojevich are allies, so now he's somehow dragging Michelle Alexander into this game.
Who I bet $100 would not agree with him one bit.
You know, I just read the. It's funny you should say that. I just read the postscript, or the new introduction to her book that just came out in paperback, and she's ripping Trump, okay? But now, somehow or other, Rod Blagojevich has dragged her into this. And I just want to say one thing. I didn't hear a shout out to Leonard Goodman. Leonard Goodman is the lawyer here in the city of Chicago. He comes on this show from time to time. He's left of center. He's even left of where I am.
Wait, I think I hear a bus pulling up in the city of Chicago.
Yep, there we go. Throw Leonard under the bus. So anybody who believes that Rod Blagojevich is for real, the guy who fought the hardest to get him out of prison didn't get a shout out. Richard Mell got a shout out. Richard Mell was the guy to start the investigation by alerting people to the fact that Rod Blagojevich was up to no good. Billy Branch is in the studio. He's been around Chicago. He knows what I'm talking about. He remembers all this stuff. So it's funny. I just did not hear a shout out to Leonard Goodman. Maybe Leonard's too left. Isn't that what happened to lefties? He usually throw lefties under the bus, D. So it's interesting. He's thanking Jesse Jackson. He's thanking Jesse Jackson Jr. He's, talking about Michelle Alexander. He didn't mention Nelson Mandela. I'm surprised he didn't get around to Nelson Mandela. But Leonard Goodman now, one word for Leonard Goodman.
Well, if that does happen, Leonard, you always have a home here in the Ben Joravsky Show. We'll throw you on the microphone and you can talk all about it. So there it was, everybody.
He didn't thank Barack Obama for giving up the seat to begin with.
No, he didn't. By the way, none of this would happen if Barack Obama had just simply commuted Blagojevich's sentence back in 2016, which a lot of the Blagojeviches were really hoping he would do that.
Yeah.
We would not have Rod Blagojevich as a salesperson for Donald John Trump.
Except he's not going to be much of a salesperson.
All right,
except for the great uneducated. No black person is into Blagojevich.
All right, we will have that discussion when we return. Monroe Anderson is here. Billy Branch is here. We're going to be talking about, will black people be convinced to vote for Donald John Trump having heard Rod Blagojevich sing his praises? We have some people who've already come on the show who said, yes, they will. I say they won't. We'll see what Billy Branch and Monroe Anderson have to say on the subject when we return.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.
Hey, everybody. What you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
We're talking Blago, Trump. We'll get into Bernie. We'll get into Bloomberg. The debates tonight. We've been talking Blago and his new role as pitchman for Donald Trump. I forgot completely. There's a Democratic debate tonight, and Bloomberg will be in the debate. Oh, my God, there's so much political stuff erupting here. I don't know where to begin. My guest, Monroe Anderson, he comes in every Wednesday. And my other guest, this is a great moment for the Ben Joravsky Show, his Ben Joravsky Show debut, Billy Branch. Welcome to the show, Billy.
All right, thanks, man. Good to be here.
Those are some serious pipes, ladies and gentlemen. That man's got a radio voice. Right. Monroe, you're going to have to up your game.
Yeah, I can't compete. I can't compete.
And
he plays a mean harmonica, too.
Yeah, before we get into the question of the day, and which I'll just one more time remind people: will black voters fall for this game that Blago's playing, this pitch that Blago's making on behalf of Donald Trump? Billy Branch, why don't you just take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience. A lot of our listeners are music fans. They know about your musical career. Why don't you just take a little moment to introduce yourself?
Well, I've been leader of my band, Sons of Blues, for, over 40 years now. And, we play around the Chicago area. We travel the globe. Matter of fact, I'm going back to the UK Sunday. We were scheduled to do a 3-week historical tour in China next month. Obviously, that ain't happening. But
coronavirus.
Yeah, I'm somewhat of a political animal. I got BA in poli-sci from University of Illinois back in 74. It was a while back, and I follow politics a great deal, as well as my wife and a lot of my friends. I mean, Chicago, you can't help it.
Now you're born and raised. You're Chicago. You weren't born here, but you grew up in Chicago, right?
I was born here,
okay.
Raised in Los Angeles, and returned to go to U of I.
So you had the benefit of seeing the way the world worked in a different locale. In other words, most people born and raised in Chicago have a tendency just to view things, well, this is the way it is in Chicago. This is the way it'll always be, because it was the way when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, because Billy and I have been friends for a very long time, at least 30 years, maybe longer.
Right.
And I hang out with the blues musicians periodically. And if you're with a group of them and hear them talking, you realize these are world class people. I mean, they've traveled all over the world. And so they know national politics, local politics, and international politics. I mean, those that know. And Billy is one of those. I mean, like he said, he's played many foreign countries.
Yeah. And like you said, you grew up in L.A.
Right.
So is the Chicago view of the world, like that cynical, corrupt view of the world, prevalent everywhere you go? Do you see it everywhere you go, or is it just unique to Chicago?
Well, it's very strong in Chicago. In L.A., I left when I was 17, and I didn't have a keen political awareness. I was developing, and then in college, of course, that's where a lot of your political views are nurtured and as they grow. But Chicago's pretty well known for its politics. The first thing they'll say, a lot of times in foreign countries in Europe, they'll say Al Capone, and then they'll say blues, and then they'll say politics. So.
Yeah, and on Celebration, the city was in Celebration on Sunday. Monroe's not a sports fan, but the All-Star game was in the city of Chicago. And I like when Chicago wants to put the best view of itself forward. You know what I mean? They'll talk about all the great. Well, in this case, they were talking about all the great musicians that came from Chicago, and the great legacy of music in the city of Chicago. Now, one word about political corruption, not one word about tips, not one word about inside deals. You would think it was Nirvana in the city of Chicago, but
well, compared to the White House, it is.
All right, let's get down to it. So, gentlemen, we've just spent a good portion of the early part of the show listening to bits and pieces of Rod Blagojevich's comments that he made to the press that assembled outside of his house on the north side of Chicago. He was celebrating his release from prison. The Chicago Sun-Times story tells, the front page tells the whole story, Billy. A free Maine.
A free Maine.
Exactly.
That sounds like muddy waters.
A free white Maine.
I'm a Maine.
Right. A free white Maine.
I spell him. Hey, child.
Right.
Both of you are funny in your own way. A free Maine. Yes, that is exactly Muddy Waters. But a free white Maine, because literally his hair is white.
Right.
Now
Oh, that would have been way better.
A free white Maine. But he is a white Maine, and he is free.
Newspaper editors don't see color.
Yeah, unless they're black. And okay, so a free white Maine. He has now positioned himself by virtue of the 8 years he spent in federal prison to be an outspoken critic of our criminal justice system and an outspoken defender of Donald John Trump. I'm not making this up, Billy. I'm not making this up, Monroe. I just listened to him say
Oh,
this.
no, I listened to him suck up for a good 15 minutes.
All right, so your thoughts, your most general thoughts about him, Monroe.
He and Donald J. Trump are cut from the same cloth. And so they like a simpatico, you know, they say, you know, Blagojevich still has not expressed any remorse whatsoever. He's still running around basically saying that he's innocent. That's why he got the 14 to begin with. If he would have been remorseful at the time of before sentencing, when he was running around doing news conferences and showing up on game shows and what have you, claiming to be innocent, and the judge told him to chill out, and he ignored the judge, and so the judge says, "Okay, I'll have my word before it's over," and that's why he got the 40, because the 14 years was too much. You know, I thought that even when it happened, but then I said, you mess with the judge and you get what you get.
Did you think it was too much, Billy?
Well, you know, the general perception is that it was. I'm not sure, but like Monroe said, you know, he was so blatantly, you know, he became like this caricature, you know, appearing on all the talk shows and kind of making a mockery of the whole thing. And I think that's what really why he got the book thrown at him, because the judge says, "Oh, now wait a minute now, you know, I mean, we all understand white privilege, but you done gone, you went too far.
You're blowing it for other white people."
Yeah, you know, I got to draw the line here. So, you know,
treat you like a black man.
Kind of.
They did not treat him like a black man.
No, not at all.
Okay, first of all, they sent him to the nice prison.
Yeah,
all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not
and
at
they
all.
let him out. He was out on bond, so he was free until he was sentenced.
Right. No, I'm talking about at the length of the sentence.
Okay. All right.
I'm not talking about the treatment.
Yeah.
No, it's good to be a white privileged man in America.
Well, it is, and you know, you look at he's at the group that Trump's pardoning. He's fallen in. These are convicted felons, man. These aren't guys that were questionably innocent. These guys, they were all guilty. I mean, but, you know, a lot of people had empathy for him because they said he was a nice guy. I think he worked with some of the black community leaders. So they got, and you know, and the black folks are very forgiving. Very, very forgiving. I mean, you know, go back to George Wallace when he ran for president. Black folks, a lot of them supported him.
Oh, the best example of that is with Dylan Roof. After he killed those 9 people in the church, prayed with them, and then shot them and killed them, they said they forgave him right afterwards.
Yeah.
If that had been one of my relatives, I wouldn't have been so quick to forgive.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, you make a very good point. We're obsessed here in Chicago with Rod Blagojevich and his case, but there were other people who Trump either pardoned or commuted, and they were white crime criminals, if you will, and white people, if you will, including Bernard Kerik, former police official in New York City, Michael Milken, and who else? Ed DiBartolo, who owned the San Francisco 49ers. So white crime criminals,
right?
As opposed
to wealthy white men.
Yeah.
You know, the irony is that I heard the quote he said. This was really surreal when he says, "The system is broken."
Yeah,
well,
right.
You're the example.
Right.
The system is...
Who you quote? Who
Trump.
said that? Oh, Trump.
Blagojevich said that today.
He
said the system is broken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot what he
and I'm gonna work
that tangent. Yeah,
to fix it. Well, yeah, it's broken, but maybe not in the way that you're posturing that is broken.
Really, when you think of the concept of the system is broken, how do you interpret that? What is broken about the system?
Broken to me is that if you don't have enough money, a lot of times you're not going to get a fair trial. And a lot of people have been railroaded, black folks, minorities, poor folks, just because they didn't have access to credible legal sources. They didn't have legal resources. And, I mean, we all know people being put away for 20 and 30 years for a little pot or a little cocaine or, some people going for life, man. And then these guys are doing all kinds of...
and you have young men sitting in Cook County Jail right now who've been there for 2 years because they couldn't raise the bail. They couldn't afford to pay the bail. They haven't been convicted of anything, and they've already done 2 years.
Yeah, and let me just point out, there's so many bizarre ironies in all this. It came out in the Sun-Times that behind the scenes, one of the groups that was calling on Donald Trump to release Rod Blagojevich was the Fraternal Order Police here in the city of Chicago.
Whoa.
It's in the Sun-Times. Folks want to read it. They wrote a letter to Trump, and they have some influence with Trump. Kevin Graham, the head of the Fraternal Order Police, met with Trump. He was in the White House a while ago, and he was saying, you should really release him. He spent too much time in prison. Let me just say this. I agree with the Fraternal Order Police on that point, Billy Branch and Monroe. I do agree that 8 years was enough, okay?
Right.
That said, it's interesting that same Fraternal Order Police and Donald Trump are leading the charge on a local level against Kim Foxx because they think she's too nice.
See, that's
on people who are truly in prison because they can't pay their bail.
That's a red flag right there, because FOP. Well, FOP is FOP.
Right.
That's a red flag.
So, if you believe in criminal justice reform, if you believe the system is broke, if you believe there are people who are unjustly in jail...
it's only broke when it doesn't continue to favor white men. That's when there must be something wrong with it. With black men, the system is quite fine. They're happy with it, except... Well, they aren't putting enough of us in jail.
What is the what's the movement called? When they've gone and proven that people been in prison for like 20 and 30. What's that project?
Innocence Project.
The Innocence Project. That's a perfect case. Look at how many lives have been destroyed. Innocent people, their whole lives. And it's interesting to me that most of the time when they are finally freed, these people, they show no bitterness. They show no desire for revenge. They're just so happy that finally that they were exonerated. But this happens, probably a lot more than we're even aware of, that people are, innocently imprisoned, and their lives and the lives of their family are completely decimated.
Well, speaking of that, we have a certain New York City former mayor who not only did the having black kids and men slammed up against the wall for a number of years, stopped and frisked, but with the Central Park Five, like Trump, he didn't want to see them compensated.
No, you're talking about Michael Bloomberg. Of course, we're going to get into Michael Bloomberg. I just want to follow up on something that, Billy, you just got finished saying. We've seen that story that you just described unfold many times,
right?
Where a man is let out of prison after years in jail, and tests have shown that he didn't do the crime. And they're largely unknown to the public. They're not celebrities like Rod Blagojevich. They don't command the press. Like there may be one press conference when the person is released.
When they're released.
And that's it. And what they don't do is become political spokespeople for a politician. And let me tell you right now, that's the play here. Rod Blagojevich is now going to become a regular spokesperson for Donald Trump. He will be on the campaign trail. If necessary, he'll do commercials. His press conference today, I guarantee you, things that he said will be aired in Donald Trump commercials. I wouldn't be surprised if he cleared some of those things. The language was cleared with White House handlers. It was so perfectly tailored to fit a Donald Trump commercial. This is an infomercial for Donald Trump, Monroe
Except
Anderson.
it's not going to reach black people. Blagojevich had a certain black following in Chicago, but it was self-interested politicians mainly, and so it's not going to have any impact. And once you get beyond Chicago, then nobody knows who. Among black people, know who Blagojevich is.
Well, he was on that Apprentice show, so there may be people who, that guy from Apprentice.
Oh, a lot of people know Blagojevich as a celebrity from Apprentice, and as Billy was saying, he was on the David Letterman show.
Yeah, right. What was really good about that is he says to David, I've been wanting to get on your show in the worst way.
Yeah. Oh, and he said, and now you have.
Yeah, you already, you just did, right?
Yeah.
Billy, do you think it's going to work? Do you think black voters will vote for Donald Trump based on Rod Blagojevich's appeal?
You know, for whatever crazy reasons, every time you see the Trump rallies, you see these black folks in the background, and you wonder, are they getting paid or what? But I think to a small degree. I don't think en masse black people are going to fall for that. Like I say, black folks are very forgiving, and a lot of times they base their allegiances on association. For example, when Rahm ran for mayor, I knew he was going to win because Obama, the connection. And the same thing, that's why Biden is enjoying that popularity. He's, Obama's vice president. So,
except Bloomberg is buying.
Well, we'll get into that. But you're on a roll.
Yeah, but a lot of times, like I said, black folks are very forgiving, and there is a contingency that doesn't really scrutinize. That just kind of, they base their perceptions through the media. There is a contingency of folks like that. Case in point, again, you always see these handful of black folks, blacks for Obama, I'm sorry, for Trump, and it's crazy, it's insane, but it exists. I don't think in mass, no. But I think there'll be a few folks that will look at that as an endorsement. And
well, this is something that I observed over the years. I'm going to share this with you, coming out straight out of my mind. Get your thoughts on it, Monroe and Billy. And that is this: I've talked on the show many times about how when Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court justice, whose whole career has been against affirmative action.
Right.
All right. Whole career is against. He's always believed that the country is a meritocracy, and any time a black person asks for a position, anything that's breaking the meritocracy, you're taking
he's against it.
Yeah, he's against it. But when he was in trouble,
yeah.
When they nailed him on a sexual harassment charges from Anita Hill,
this feels like a lynch mob.
It's a lynching. Yeah. Suddenly he's black, and
then he benefited from affirmative action for his education. So hey, there it is.
I don't know if I mentioned this or not on your show before, but a friend of mine back in the 70s when she got married, Clarence came to her wedding. There's a photograph I saw, and he looked like a Black Panther back then. I mean, literally like he was a member of the Black Panther Party. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. What year was this?
It was in the late 70s, early 80s.
Well, Monroe, if you've seen me back in the late 70s, you'd be surprised. Right. We all been through our changes.
Oh yeah.
But you are the new Rush Limbaugh.
No, I am not the new Rush Limbaugh. No.
He's the Rush Limbaugh of the left.
Yeah. That's why we're in this little room, hanging on by our fingernails. Billy, when you're on the left, you hang on by your fingers.
But one thing just came to me, if I might. You know, the whole thing with Burge.
John Burge, yeah.
Yeah. And that, to me, was really swept under the rug because he was never really held accountable. They gave him, you know, a slap on the wrist. But, I mean, look at the lives that cat destroyed, man. I mean, I don't know what the numbers were. I know it was 30, 40, 50 or more people, but that were tortured, and he was never really held accountable
You're
for that.
absolutely correct. And I would, again, remember I said I would welcome Donald John Trump if he would suddenly legalize marijuana on the federal level and let people out of prison who are there for a reefer. I would say the same thing to Rod Blagojevich. Okay, Rod, everybody pays attention to you. You have the media at your beck and call, and you're good friends with the president. Let's hear you go on a crusade for all the people who have been unfairly sentenced to prison because the confessions were tortured out of them.
Yeah.
You follow what? I don't see him talking about that.
No, not at all.
But this is the point I was going to make when I did the Clarence Thomas thing. This popped into my head. Get your comments on this, Monroe and Billy. It's not just black people who discover their blackness when they get in trouble. What was the lady's name, in addition to Clarence Thomas, the Miss America, Miss USA, when she got in trouble for those photographs?
Oh, yeah. That was
Vanessa Williams.
Vanessa Williams, yeah.
White people do it, too. So when Bill Clinton got in trouble for the Monica Lewinsky thing.
Vanessa Williams. Vanessa Williams is black.
That's what he's saying.
I was saying, no, I'm saying that it's not just black people who find their inner blackness when they get in trouble, like Vanessa Williams or Clarence Thomas.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying,
no.
Right. Okay.
And Bill Clinton, if you recall, when he got in trouble for Monica Lewinsky, he suddenly sort of compared himself to like persecuted black people down through history and got Jesse Jackson to be very sympathetic to him. Black people rallied around him. And now I'm watching Rod Blagojevich do the same thing.
Well, Jesse and Bill had they were same cloth. It's about to go too.
Monroe is suggesting something.
Well, it's like black people are the go-to people for empathy. You know, it's like, well, let's go over there with the black. We in trouble. Yeah, you know, it's because black folks are very forgiving and generally very loving and caring people.
Well, we'll see how far this goes. We'll see if Rod Blagojevich takes this trip on the road, if he goes to black churches, if he goes to Operation Push, if he starts extolling the virtues of Donald John Trump, let's say, at Operation Push. It'd be interesting.
I don't think Jesse's going to let him in. I don't think that's going to. No, yeah, right, exactly. Jesse is not pro-Trump at all.
No, I know that.
But right, so he won't give him a platform.
No.
But when Jesse and Blagojevich, they were pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they were. If you recall, this goes way back in time when Blagojevich was a congressman. God, I can't believe I remember this stuff, Billy. Yeah. Jesse Jackson went on one of his missions to get a pilot released who was shot down. I could see the gentleman's face, the pilot's face, but I can't remember. I think it was Franklin was his name, but don't quote me on that. Yeah. And it was a mission. The pilot had been shot down over Yugoslavia during the Civil War. And, of course, Blagojevich is of Serbian ancestry. And so he joined Jesse Jackson. He went with Jesse Jackson on that mission to the former, I forget where it was. And I think they met with Milosevic, who was the president of, I cannot believe I remember this stuff. And so you're absolutely correct. There was a connection.
That was a convenience. That wasn't any true relationship or anything like that.
Well, if you really want to know what Rod Blagojevich thinks about Jesse Jackson and Jesse Jackson Jr., listen to the tapes that they released where Jesse Jackson Jr., he is just ripping Jesse Jackson Jr., and making fun of him.
Right.
I forgot.
Exactly. No, you're right. It's the same as Bloomberg is messing with Trump right now, saying how they laugh behind his back. Everybody, they talk about him and they laugh about him behind his back.
Yeah.
But
which I'm sure is true.
But the old adage, politics makes strange. But all these cats talk about each other like dogs until it's time to get elected.
Yeah.
Everybody. There ain't no love there. there ain't no love. It's all about, hey, you help me out, I help you. You wash my back, I'll wash.
Right. Anyway, I can't
yours.
imagine Jesse Jackson giving Blagojevich a platform at Bush. I may be proven wrong, but I just can't imagine that.
Well, I can't imagine. Let's put it this way. I can see Jesse Jackson allowing Rod Blagojevich to take the stage at Operation Push at a meeting. In order, if nothing else, it'll draw attention to Operation Push. Every reporter in town will be there.
Yeah.
What I have a hard time believing is, and I really hope Jesse Jackson doesn't do this, is that he would allow Rod Blagojevich just free access to put out pro-Trump propaganda from the pulpit at Operation Push without any pushback.
I think that'll be a step way too far. I don't see him doing anything like that.
I just can't see that. That's a level of cynicism.
Well, see,
I can't buy.
This is a dynamic that we have now that we didn't have years ago, and that's Reverend Al.
Sharpton.
Yeah, Reverend Al can be a stop to Jesse because he has more of a public audience right now, and so if Jesse goes too far, Al can call him in on
call
it.
him out on it.
Yeah, call him out on it now. So I just can't imagine Jesse being used that way. I mean, because black people dislike Trump so much in the aggregate, so much that anybody who supports him is going to be on the wrong side.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because obviously his soul has been sold, bought, and paid for. I mean, that's it. He's gonna be beholden for the rest of his days.
You talk about
without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, he's beholden. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out.
All right, that's Billy Branch, Monroe Anderson in the studio as well. We're talking Blago and Trump and how far Blago will take it. We're going to take a break and switch gears when we come back to talk about tonight's debate and Bloomberg and Biden. Monroe already teased us. Will black voters switch their allegiance from Biden to Bloomberg? We'll be right back after this. Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralXXX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
It's the butter cow, which has 9 hearts to represent the 9 essential nutrients in milk. That's right, it's made entirely out of butter. It's a state fair tradition since at least 1922.
Eroding beaches on Chicago's lakefront, warmer winters in the upper Midwest, microplastics. What can any one person do? Our best hope for saving the planet and ourselves is through the power of we. Get to the 9th annual One Earth Film Festival, the Midwest's premier environmental film, March 6th through the 15th. 26 films, 48 events. Engage with venues include Gold Coast, Patagonia, Loyola University, Plant, St. Patrick's Church, Chicago Cultural Center, more. Go to oneearthfilmfest.org. That's wildfest.org.
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
All right, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring our program. But we also need to talk about, I think it's going to be a weekly segment here when Monroe Anderson visits our studio, Ben. It's called Monroe's Hat. I couldn't think of anything better. Monroe, could you please describe, tell us about your hat here. If you're watching on the live stream and the video's working, go ahead, Monroe. Tell everybody about your hat.
This is a black stingy brim.
What was that again?
A black stingy brim.
Ah.
Small brim. Some people will wear it with the brim down.
Yeah,
all right.
Like a private detective.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Humphrey Bogart look there.
Exactly. But
it is the coolest hat.
Just tried, this is on my Facebook page. The hat? My picture. I'm wearing it. Yeah.
Where did you get it? Give a plug to the place you got it.
It's a hat store on Roosevelt Road.
Okay.
I figured it was Roosevelt.
Yeah. I forget the name of the place.
It is a cool hat, and Monroe a lot of times wears that cap.
Yeah. Usually
cool
I wear it.
Oh, it's that hat place right before the highway, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right.
Guy never fails to amaze me, Billy Branch. How did he know that?
I just walked by it a few times.
Well, since we're doing hat plugs, I got a plug Optimo.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
That's my main man, Graham Thompson, man. He makes bad hats.
Oh, he does the custom made.
Yeah. I mean, I got about 20-something Optimos.
Ben, where do you get your hats at?
I get my hats at what's the name? Liz. I used to have a Bulls hat. I don't have enough Bulls hats, Billy. I got about 2,000 of them.
Really?
I love my beloved Chicago Bulls.
All right,
they just break my heart every year, but I stay loyal. And wait, as long as we're giving plugs, Billy Branch, tell people where you'll be playing this weekend.
Okay, this weekend, Billy Branch and the Sons of Blues at Kingston Mines.
Hell yeah.
What is the address? I think it's 2548 North Halsted. Showtimes 10:30, 12:30, and 2:30 a.m. We do 3 sets.
And if you tell
they go all night.
They go all night.
Yeah, right.
If you tell Billy Branch that you heard him on the show, he'll take requests. How about that?
Yeah, how about that?
I just threw that out there. He didn't agree to that. He goes, I didn't agree to that.
I mean, hey, we might even get a complimentary CD or something to somebody who says they heard us on the
Ben Joravsky show.
Holy there
cow.
you go. Yeah.
Wow. Definitely did not go that far. Dennis always gives me a hard time, Billy, when he reads some comments that our listeners make on Facebook that are funny. I always go, we got a blue Mustang. We're going to send you in the mail a blue Mustang. Oh, we do not give away blue Mustangs. So.
How would we give away a car? All right, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky show is just moments away. But before we get into that, let's thank these unions. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith. Local 126 and District 8 are sponsors. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9. The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky show, hour number 2 as well, is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2. Let's go. It is Wednesday, February 19th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, we still got Monroe Anderson in studio with a lovely hat. Billy Branch still in studio, and we welcome back Committeeman Peter Janko and mystery guest. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Benny J. Ben Joravsky.
Billy Branch and Monroe Anderson are definitely in the studio, and Monroe has
custom made. Mine are off the rack.
Remember last week you were here, and Henry Davis was in the studio with his dad. His dad had a great hat. Did you notice that hat?
Yeah, that was a Big Apple.
That was a Big Apple. Oh my God, I love that hat. I was like, but I'm stuck with my Bulls hat. All right, Billy Branch, Monroe Anderson. Let's focus. D, you got an update before I go over this?
Absolutely, I do. We got all things Blago today, but we can't forget about that budget address.
Oh, yeah.
From our Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker.
It's been more than a decade since the last contribution was made to the Rainy Day Fund, and it was almost entirely wiped out in 2017.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and play more audio here. Let's see here. Governor Pritzker says adult use cannabis. By the way, guys, if you're having trouble with the video, I'm trying to fix that. But if you miss anything or audio or anything, please remember you can download these shows, all right? Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites. I was told to, quote, jiggle the cord if the video went out.
I see.
Lovely operation we have here.
High-tech operation, jiggle the cord.
Boy. There we go. All right.
That's kind of how I fix things in my house. I jiggle the cord.
I think I got it there. All right, so it says here, Governor Pritzker says adult-use cannabis sales will generate at least $46 million in the coming fiscal year. Smoke them if you got them.
With a successful first month of sales under our belt, I can conservatively project that adult-use cannabis sales will generate at least $46 million in revenue for our general fund in the coming fiscal year, of which $10 million will go directly to pay down our bill backlog.
$46 million, in the total scheme of things, not a lot. I know that sounds weird. I would love $46 million.
Yeah, he didn't factor in, he didn't mention it, was the teenage sales.
Oh, right. That was just adult sales.
That was adult sales.
Those are the guys who are coming up to you when you're walking down the street. Hey, man, could you just go in and buy a joint for me?
Right.
Remember the old days it was liquor?
Right.
And now they're like, hey, man. Did you guys ever do that? It's true confession time. Billy Branch, the 18-year-old Billy Branch, or 17-year-old Billy Branch in Los Angeles. Did you ever go up to somebody on the sidewalk and go, "Excuse me, sir, could you buy me
not in L.A., but when I came to Chicago, man, we had a thing, man. We had a system, and at U of I, there was Maxwell Street, where the first blues players used to play over there. But there was a liquor store you could go and buy underage.
Okay.
And one of our buddies, we would time him, and he said, "I'll be back in 10 minutes." It was like a 2-mile round trip run, and he'd be back 10 minutes with a gallon of Richard's Wild Irish Rum.
You guys were drinking the good stuff.
Yeah, right.
Well, I grew up in Gary, so I had a fake ID that worked.
Mm-hmm.
Starting when I was 16.
Those Gary boys.
And I looked like I was 12.
Yeah.
But nobody cared. As long as you showed them an ID, And it wasn't a very convincing ID, but it was enough of one where I would flash it and
nobody could believe it. Billy, I've known Monroe for years. The guy always looks like he's 20 years younger than what he is. I knew in the 80s. You should see him in the 80s. He looks like he was 10.
He's going to be in the 80s. Yeah, yeah, right.
By the way, did you ever see the movie Superbad? It's a movie. Who are the characters? I look at D. He knows them.
Michael Cera and Jonah Hill.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But they come up with a fake ID. His name is McLovin. It was like, anyway, I just love the movie McLovin. So, all right, let's get back to business here. Stop talking about fake IDs and start talking about politics. Monroe, you teased it. You were pretty funny when you did it. Michael Bloomberg's in the race, and for the longest time, we've been talking about the allegiance that black voters have had to Joe Biden in the polls consistently by virtue of the fact that he was Barack Obama's wingman, and it's a sign of appreciation for the loyalty he showed Barack Obama. Now there's a new man in the race. Bloomberg is throwing money around like it's confetti, and suddenly like, see you later. Politics is a nasty business, Billy Branch. See you later. Now I'm going with the new guy. Right. Wow.
Well, also because Biden is not looking like he's going to be there much longer.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's kind of a weak campaign.
Right. Why waste your love?
So what do you think about this, Monroe? How deep is the love? Well, just not just black voters, but Democratic voters in general for Michael Bloomberg.
He's buying it. Right now, I think they really, and I'm going to be serious about this, I think that people believe that Bloomberg could beat Trump. And that's the main focus for everybody, is who can actually beat Trump. There's the Democratic stalwarts, the powers that be, are scared to death of Bernie because they see 1972 in November.
If you 1972.
Yeah, okay. What happened in 1972 was that McGovern won and became the nominee. And at the convention, the liberals and the progressives were dancing in the aisles. They were so excited about it. Come election day,
he got slaughtered.
He lost 49 states.
Name the two entities that went with George McGovern. Go.
D.C.
Very good. That's the one.
and Minneapolis.
Nope.
He didn't win his home state?
No, he did not. His home state was South Dakota, and he did not win South Dakota. For 10 trivia points and a blue Mustang. Named a state that went for, you don't remember?
No.
That's because all that reefer he was smoking in the 70s caught up with a Billy Branch. The state of Massachusetts went for George McGovern in 1972.
Yeah, that's right. 72 was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
For me. It was longer for me than it was for you.
Yeah. Well, you were smoking more marijuana back then. But there were bumper stickers that would, back in those days, that people had that said, "Don't blame me, I'm from Massachusetts."
I remember the bumper stickers now that you mentioned it, yes.
So all right.
So anyway, that's the fear, and the other with Bernie winning, and the other thing, even more than, let's say he wins by a whisker, like Trump did 4 years ago. Bernie wins by that. How is he going to govern? If the Republicans jammed up Obama, who had an actual consensus going on. Bernie doesn't have that, and his programs are much more revolutionary, his word, than Obama's was. He would be like Jane Byrne when she first got to the City Hall.
All right, I have so many responses in my mind, but I'm
going
to allow Billy Branch.
I know you're a bro. I know.
I am. Bernie's my number one guy, Billy Branch, of the candidates right now. So just get your thoughts about what Monroe said.
Well, I'm rooting for Bernie as well, but I know he's got that stigma, and that label, Democratic Socialists. People.
It's not a label; it's what he calls himself.
He is that. Yeah. But I'm saying.
Yeah.
And people are terrified. Number one, they don't understand socialism, and they equate it with communism. So it's vilified. He's got that stigma. I'm in total support of what he's his platform. I'm all for it. I think he makes sense. I believe he'll actually be able to follow through with his agenda if he does get elected. But I understand the challenge because he's stigmatized, and like you say, the old guard, they're scared to death because, which is why in the last, when they they gave it to Hillary and bypassed Bernie when he actually was the legitimate contender. And so, but as far as Bloomberg, now it's surfacing he's going to engage in the debate. So the scrutiny is going to.
That's tonight. Yep.
Yep. It's the stuff's going to hit the fan because
he's going to have a target on his back and his forehead.
I mean, not to mention the stop and frisk, but now the misogynistic thing that's all coming to a head. So we'll see how that plays out.
Our next guest, Peter Janko, total Bernie supporter. So we're going to hit the Bernie side of the story, folks. All our Bernie listeners out there are upset by what Monroe said, but I have to say this, Monroe. I'm old enough to remember '72.
Right.
All right?
Right.
I was a big supporter as very young Benny Joravsky, huge fan of George McGovern. I stayed up late to hear his speech.
Same here.
Okay, so I knew what went down in '72. And by the way, there was a floor fight in '72 between factions of the Democratic Party here in Chicago. This is ancient history, but I remember it. Jesse Jackson had tag team with a former alderman named Billy Singer, and they ended up forcing Mayor Richard J. Daley to leave the convention. They basically forced him to leave the convention. There were quote unquote reforms in which the Democrats were trying to ensure that Daley had a certain number of black representatives and Hispanic representatives in his delegation. So these are ancient fights in the Democratic Party, and I remember it.
Right.
When Daley left, and some of the Democratic committeemen in the city of Chicago, Billy Branch went and supported Nixon. That's how alienated the party was. So I, as an old guy, I am very well aware that a fight in the Democratic primaries that bleeds over into the convention can spell gloom and doom for the Democratic Party. I understand that. Two things. One, millennials don't know. This is ancient history to them. They don't know this. It's just two old people in a studio talking about this.
No, but we were the millennials back then. That's the point I made.
Okay, and then
actually, today's millennials are not turned off by the word socialism at all.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So, like your kids, for instance, they don't buy into it the way you do.
But the millennials don't. No, I don't have a problem with socialism. In fact, when I fight with my right-wing friends on Facebook, I point out to them that the 10 happiest countries in the world are all socialist.
Yeah. Well,
because they always refer to Venezuela.
Yeah, I know. No.
Yeah, right. And I say, the 10 happiest countries.
And aren't our representatives benefiting from a socialistic policies? I mean, come on, man. They've got lifetime free health care for all themselves, all their families. This is something that I think really needs to be hammered, Ben, is that these guys, our so-called representatives, are able to vote themselves raises, but yet deny an average working man's right to make over $10 or $15 an hour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They say it's not in the budget, but yet every few years they vote themselves raises. There's a laundry list of benefits that they enjoy that are not accessible to the general public.
Yeah,
and so they're in effect enjoying the benefits of a socialist.
Absolutely.
I'm not arguing against any of the policies. I love them all. I'm arguing in terms of reality. And that's and that's the problem we have is that Americans make very poor socialists because in Europe, for example, they think of their job as just something they have to do and they do it and that's it. Here in this country, your job is your identity. That's your status. Americans, Europeans, as a general rule, work 9 to 5 or whatever, and they're done with it. We work beyond the time we're supposed to. We don't take vacations in some instances. It's a different mentality.
Yeah, but I'm more in the Billy's camp because I believe it's almost a case of how you label things. I believe Americans have bought into socialism, in quotes. They like socialism program. They love Social Security. They love Medicare. Whenever
they now love Obamacare.
Yeah, they love Obamacare.
Yeah.
They love it when their taxes, they could see evidence that their taxes are being spent on their behalf.
Right.
Okay? So Americans, they may say they don't like socialism, but in fact, anything that they benefit from is basically a socialistic
except
program.
they don't know this. They don't know
basically, it's not understood.
Right.
And like I say, it's got the Trump, they're already spinning Bernie as he's a communist.
Right.
And the general perception, because it's not widely understood, they're equating socialism with communism. Yeah. And, that's...
By the way, this is one of my pet peeves. I was ranting about this last week. I wrote about it in the Reader. Chris Matthews for MS. And do we have that bit? I guess we could.
I can pull it up.
I mean, he went on this. This is the liberal station, Billy Branch. This is the liberal station.
Yeah, but Chris isn't that liberal.
Whatever. He's got access to the liberal station, and nobody
What did he
said
say?
anything.
What did he say?
You got it, D?
He's
pulling it up. He went on this rant. To your point. I wish our next guest could hear this. I'd love to get Peter Janko's thoughts on this one.
I'm sure they heard.
Oh, they've heard. Janko, man, he's a political junkie. He went on this rant. I was the night of the New Hampshire primary about communism, and he was essentially saying, to your point, that Bernie Sanders. You got it? All right, D's going to.
I have my own views of the word socialist, and I'll be glad to share them with you in private. And they go back to the early 1950s. I have an attitude about them. I remember the Cold War. I have an attitude towards Castro. I believe if Castro and the Reds had won the Cold War, there would have been executions in Central Park, and I might have been one of the ones getting executed. And certain other people would be there cheering, okay? So I have a problem with people who took the other side. I don't know who Bernie supports over these years. I don't know what he means by social. 1 week it's Denmark. We're going to be like Denmark. Okay, that's harmless. That's basically a capitalist country with a lot of good social welfare programs. Denmark is harmless.
It's pretty clearly in the Denmark category, yeah.
Are you sure? How do you know? Did he tell you that?
Well, I mean, that's what he says, and that's what his agenda calls for, right?
Yeah.
He's not calling for any...
Let's see. Let's figure that one out.
Well, we haven't seen a campaign yet where video of him praising the other version,
right,
which is Castro, has been used.
Well, but it
will be used.
That's a question
we haven't seen how that plays.
Of how what the effect that has.
Well, what does he think of Castro? That's a great question. What did you think of Fidelismo? We all thought he was great when he first. I thought he was cheering like mad for him when he first went in, and then he became a communist and started shooting every one of his enemies.
Okay, hold those thoughts on the Cuban Revolution. I have to go back to the spin room and Democratic presidential candidate.
Oh, they weren't in the spin room.
No, they weren't. Billy, that is on the liberal station. Wow. That's the liberal station. That man is equating.
Except Chris is an old Philadelphian, basically.
He's from Boston, and he's supposedly a Democrat. What Democrat in the world?
He's not from Boston. He's from Philadelphia.
Or Philadelphia. He worked for Tip O'Neill. But my point is that is straight up red baiting when you link somebody who believes in a safety net programs, which are the bread and butter of the Democratic Party.
That's where he is on that stuff. So, I mean, he's 70-something. He's 70. I'm 70-something.
You're 70-something. I ever heard you say nonsense.
Yeah, right. No, but he's...
And you're not on MSNBC. No. You're not on the most liberal station in the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
if they called, I would be.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get on there and go and equate socialism, safety net socialism, Medicare and Social Security with communism.
This is the reality that I'm talking about when you Birdie Bros go, oh, this can happen, this happen. Chris is a borderline liberal. He's not a real liberal, but he's borderline. And if he's talking that way, think about what the moderate and right-wing Americans are doing. I mean,
you got to stand up to people like Chris Matthews.
It may happen, but it's not going to happen by November. This is a long process. The millennials are right now at the point where there are more of them than there are of us baby boomers. But they don't vote at the same percentage.
I just feel that Democrats have to stand up to that worldview that Billy was talking about.
But not at the expense of having 4 more years of Trump. Because we can have Hitler. We'll have Hitler land in 4 years if he gets back.
The reality is that everything that Chris Matthews was saying regards to Bernie Sanders will be used by Donald Trump against whoever the Democratic nominee is. And if Democrats right now don't have the guts or the intelligence or the backbone to stand up to rhetoric that's being expressed on their own outlets that denigrate their party and their values and the things they're supposed to believe in, then of course they're going to lose because they're conceding Billy Branch. It's like you're playing a game of basketball and you're letting the other side have a basket.
Chris,
defend it.
You're making Chris the face of MSNBC, and he's not. He's the most conservative of all the anchors there.
Well, he had a lot of...
Because I watched them morning, noon, and night.
He had a lot of space to speak his mind, and nobody stood up to him in that clip. They were very weak, and nobody stood up and called him out for the views that he was expressing, and they allowed him to contempt.
They did. In that clip, they did. They said that Bernie had not expressed the more communist view that Chris was making.
They didn't point out how absurd it is to say that Castro would have lined up people in Central Park and executed them. No, nothing like that has ever remotely even happened in this country.
No,
where communists killed people who believed.
He was corrected in that thing. He didn't correct them as you would correct them.
It was mildly corrected, and then they went off to a break.
Because he's a major anchor, a major power. And if you want to get airtime there, you're not going to be on MSNBC arguing with Chris Matthews.
You just proved my point there. You just proved my point right there.
No.
You just proved my point there.
No, that's how it works in the real world.
You
that's
will
what
not
I'm talking
find
about.
absolutely anybody going on Fox TV to denounce Donald Trump and link Donald Trump to like fascism.
Some of their news people have.
Never.
Yes.
Show me a clip where someone went on Fox TV and linked Donald Trump to fascism.
They've challenged. No, but
Chris Matthews linked Bernie Sanders to communism. Chris Matthews suggested that if Bernie Sanders had his way, Castro, communist, would have lined up people like him and shot them in Central Park.
No. That's not what you're listening to that tape.
You mean I listened to what he said?
No. He did not say. He was talking about how if socialists took over, that's what would have happened. He didn't say if Bernie. He didn't link this directly.
He said
Bernie
if Castro had his way, they and I need to know what Bernie. And then he said I need to know what Bernie's position was on Castro. As though Bernie somehow in his past had advocated for a communist takeover of the United States and executing people like Chris Matthews in Central Park. It's a completely preposterous notion that is sort of taking advantage of this general Trumpian worldview that they're trying to put out on us, that democratic socialism, the kind that Billy Branch advocates, that I advocate, Peter Janko advocates, Dr. D advocate, and you advocate, is somehow or other linked to communism. And that's on
But
the
that's
most
what
liberal
they
station.
do, and that's what they're going to do. Remember 4 years ago.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
We'll let it
right,
go.
exactly. I at that time, I said I liked Bernie's ideas, but Bernie would not be a good candidate because every commercial, political ad that ran would start off with a hammer and sickle in it. And then they talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Well, the hammer and sickle is being presented on MSNBC as though it were real. All right, we're going to have to take a break. We're going to have to bring our next guest on, Billy Branch, one more time. Give a shout out, tell people where they can see you this weekend.
This weekend, Kingston Mines, 2548 North Halsted, Billy Branch and the Sons of Blues. Come there and stay late and prepare to have a hangover on the next morning.
Very good. And Monroe, where can people see you this weekend?
They can see me, follow me on Facebook, day in and day out, every day. Monroe Anderson, Facebook. I have 1,000 58 followers. I want more.
All right. And
look for the man with the stingy brim hat.
And you can hear Monroe Anderson next week. Even though we disagree, he'll be right back here on this show Wednesday. We'll be arguing over Bernie.
You'll be straightened out sooner or later.
No, I won't. That lame excuse of a defense.
See, that's because you're able to do that because we live in a democratic, socialistic society.
Excellent. I am going to close out the segment with that. Billy Branch, you're welcome back anytime. We'll be right back.
Ram, Vice President Joe Biden made one of his final moves before the debate starts to show a video of him basically bear hugging President Obama. Smart move. Why is he doing that?
I think he also got a hug back.
He did.
But no, yeah, it's a smart move. It's his calling card. It's why he has the strength he has among Democratic voters, is because he served with a very, very popular president. It's what surprised me in the last debate when people were throwing the president under the bus. I mean, you have a person who's at 90-some-odd% popularity with Democrats. That is not a smart strategy. I do agree with Matt. This is going to be about the energy. There's more about a chemistry that you're going to associate, and the closer the candidate can put their own story with the story of where people live their lives, the better they're going to be. They're not going to follow all the details about this policy versus that policy. It's about relating and they feeling that they can relate to that candidate and that they understand them where they live their lives.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Hard years for Patty and for me. I spent my first 32 months in prison, nearly 3 years behind what the inmates call the razor wire, the barbed wire fence. You can't go near that fence. If you do, there are prison guards there armed with machine guns who have the discretion to shoot you. I didn't go near that fence. The buildings behind that fence where the inmates live and sleep are squalid places. They're cold and dark like tombs. There were about 900 inmates there. Drug dealers, cartel members, gangbangers, bank robbers. There were men there who committed murder, con artists, a lot of sex offenders. About 2% of the population were in the so-called white-collar category. For most of my time there, my home was a 6 foot by 8 foot prison cell with 4 cement walls, a big heavy iron door that can shut you in, a small window with bars on it, and a bunk bed. I slept on the top bunk.
At Chicagoland Cremation Options, we are committed to listening, educating, and guiding your family through the cremation process. Whether it is time of death or when planning your wishes for the future, Chicagoland Cremation Options can accommodate you at an affordable price and with great dignity. Avoid funeral home costs with direct access to a crematory for a cremation. Chicagoland Cremation Options, just south of O'Hare, 5 minutes west of Chicago. It's a family-owned business and operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Visit it at ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. We are live from the Chicago Sun-Times. Monroe Anderson is left of the studio.
And it's the closest we'll ever have to Elvis on the program. Billy Branch has left the building.
Yeah, that is pretty good. You got an update for us, young man?
Absolutely, I do. Busy day here in Illinois on the Ben Joravsky Show. We covered the Rod Blagojevich press conference that happened earlier today, featuring razor cut and blood. It was very awkward. But we also got to talk about J.B. Pritzker's 2020 budget address. We have some information on what went down at the city council meeting today as well. We'll try to get that before we roll out of here. But more from J.B. Pritzker.
And for the record, I'm not a perfect person.
That wasn't from the budget address, guys. That was a clip we play all the time. All right, let's see here. We got MAP grant funding. We got clip. I'm going to let you pick, Ben. We got one on MAP grant funding. We got Pritzker says he'll make full pension payment. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and pick one. You seem like you're busy doing your own little thing there. So let's see here. Let's do Governor Pritzker says his budget helps people and makes Illinois stronger.
Mm-hmm. You going to play something?
These lines on a budget spreadsheet, well, they give peace to sleepless nights worrying about medical bills. They are delivery on a deferred dream. They stand between poverty and prosperity. A road that is properly repaired and maintained is a car accident that never happens. A strong education system is the slingshot to success, allowing a child to thrive. Fully funding public safety means a life saved, a crime solved, and a justice system that is more equitable and fair.
Can't argue with anything he said there. And it's ironic, again, Peter Janko and Lynn Gray are guests in the studio. It is ironic that Pritzker would be giving his budget address on the very day that Rod Blagojevich is grabbing all the attention in the news. Here's the front page of the Chicago Sun-Times, if you haven't seen it already. Of course, his sentence was commuted by President Trump. He was released. He had a press conference this morning, which was essentially a press conference on behalf of Donald Trump, extolling Donald Trump's virtues. And it's clear that some kind of deal has been cut where Rod Blagojevich will now go on the road and be a spokesperson for Donald Trump, trying to convince Democratic voters that Donald Trump is a big fan and a proponent of criminal justice reforms. And it's just interesting that here is J.B. Pritzker struggling with the legacy of so many governors that we've had in the state of Illinois who've not properly paid attention to the budget, have kicked the can down the road, as they say, on all kinds of issues like pensions, obligations, and that and such. Rod Blagojevich is very guilty of that as well. All our governors pretty much are Democratic governors, Republican and alike. And here's J.B. Pritzker like trying to do the hard job of running the state. And here's Rod Blagojevich, Peter Janko, just free and easy, full assortment, array of press reporters out in helicopters flying in the air, singing the praise of Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is like unbelievable, because nobody's asked me yet how I feel about all this. I know they asked all the other big shots and stuff, but for the most part, Rod Blagojevich got what he deserved. But there's another component that other people are seeing is the term of the sentence. And in that respect, I have to kind of agree that it was excessive. And I think that's to show, other people that, don't buck the powerful people. So, the long term was definitely, the way I see it, as an example. Like, if you go against us, we're going to come down extra hard on you. But like I said, he deserved to go to jail, and there's a lot of other people in Illinois that deserve to go to jail.
All right, he deserved to go. But I'm with you. The basic point I said is many times 14 years was excessive. All right, Peter and Lynn, you're from Mchenry County. Come to the show. We always tease, well, it's the Boondocks, speaking up, by the way. And I brought the milk carton out on your behalf. You were the ones who made this milk carton. Missing in action, Ben Joravsky. People always ask about the milk carton.
It happened yesterday.
Just yesterday, yeah.
A chef was like, dude, what the hell you got buttermilk up there for?
very funny stuff. When I was relieved of my duties at that old radio station, I can't remember the name of it. I was off the air for a while.
WCPT 820.
Oh, thank you.
They fired you.
And Peter Janko thought he was funny. He put missing on a milk carton Ben Joravsky.
We did a whole video.
Yeah, we
looking
did a
for
whole
you.
video that you can find on YouTube. Just go into YouTube and type in "Where's Ben."
Where's Ben?
And the funny, I just noticed here on the back it says my height and my weight. You have me as 7'5" and 135 pounds. I haven't been 135 pounds since like 6th grade, and I've never been 7'5". What a string bean I'd be.
That was part of the joke.
All right. You both are Bernie supporters, correct?
That's
from
correct.
McHenry County.
Yeah.
And I've always, in the past, when you've been on the show, we've talked about how popular Bernie is in your community and among Democrats. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Bernie defeat Hillary Clinton in your neck of the woods back in 2016? Am I correct about that?
Overwhelmingly.
In McHenry County, yeah.
Overwhelmingly. So to pick up on the discussion / argument I was having with my dear friend Monroe Anderson about the future of the Democratic Party, the attitude of so many people, the traditional attitude of so many Democrats is mainstream Dems, Lynn, is that Bernie would be the kiss of death for the Democratic Party, that it would be overwhelming defeat from top to bottom if he were the nominee, and so Democrats would do absolutely everything they can to keep him from getting the nomination. Does that square with how you see the world up in McHenry County?
Well, we definitely have the conservative Democrat group that is anti-Bernie and would love to see anybody blue other than Bernie. But I think that the majority of McHenry County still feels the same way that we did in 2016. And when the primary comes, Bernie's going to take McHenry County again.
Yeah, I mean, right now what we're seeing is Bloomberg trying to buy the election. So there's a lot of Bloomberg people showed up. They're out there recruiting, and a lot of the Dems out in McHenry County are jumping on the Bloomberg boat. But the Bernie people, we've been out there for probably close to a year already. I mean, we did Bernie at all the different fairs, you know, the Boone County Fair, McHenry County Fair. And so, I mean, our ground game's been going much longer, so I don't think Bloomberg's going to get much traction.
We'll talk about, first of all, just give people a sense of where McHenry County is on the map, not just for people from Chicago, but for who are listening from out of town, and tell folks a little bit about the makeup of McHenry County.
Okay, McHenry County is a predominantly red county, with the exception of some of the city areas like Woodstock and that. But McHenry County is also geographically, in terms of area, is largely rural. So it's very difficult to reach people in the rural areas. But again, that's why I don't see Bloomberg getting much traction, because the Bernie people, we've been working those rural areas constantly since 2016. We've never disappeared.
So on the map, just tell people on the map where McHenry County is.
Okay, McHenry County is one of the Chicago 6 counties. It's northwest, so if you take the Kennedy over to the Northwest Tollway and kind of jump off at Hampshire exit and go north, that's all McHenry County. So, you know, we're just immediately west of Lake County, and we're just north of Kane County.
And on the Wisconsin border.
And on the Wisconsin border.
Right. And so traditionally, again, this is red country in terms of the blue versus red map. Trump did very well in your neck of the woods in 2016, correct?
That's correct.
He won, what, 60% of the vote?
Well, I don't remember how, you know, what the totals were about Trump. I know Bernie was 61 to 38, I think, if I remember correctly.
All right. And so I know you want to get into some of the local issues that you're dealing with, but just in terms of issues that can bring McHenry County voters to Bernie, what are those issues?
Medicare for all. A lot of people really are looking forward to having that burden taken off their shoulders, and to stop overpaying for health care that they may or may not even be getting. The other thing is that I know a lot of women are very concerned about the Roe versus Wade, and Bernie is all about a woman's right to choose. So I think that the women would back Bernie, and we do, in quite a bit of a large numbers.
Yeah, one of the big problems that it's like nonpartisan is the young people of McHenry County are struggling. They're struggling with student debt. A lot of them can't afford to move out of the house, so it's a big drag on the economy. And there's actually people leaving McHenry County for the first time. It was supposedly one of the most affluent counties in the country, and that's beginning to change, as families really struggle up in McHenry County. So I see Bernie's message resonating. The health care is a big issue. The fact that young people can't afford to move out on their own, start families and everything, it's a disaster, waiting to happen. So I think Bernie's message, it will resonate.
And what about the point that Monroe was making, that so many people equate Bernie's message, democratic socialism, with communism or totalitarianism? Will that work against Bernie up in McHenry County?
I don't think so, because Bernie's been talking the same language for 40 years, and anybody who follows him, who does the research, is going to see that. And nowhere does Bernie ever act like a communist, okay? So democratic socialism is completely different from communism. Bernie's not looking to come in and take all the businesses and then appoint whoever is going to work on those assembly lines. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The other thing, too, is, let's see, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But the other thing about Bernie is, the socialism, communism thing is, we found this at the county fairs. They always hit you with, how are we going to pay for this, right? So the Koch brothers went out, the Heritage Foundation tried to, prove that Medicare for all would never work, but they found out that Medicare for all would actually save money. Heritage Foundation said, Bernie, we're going to spend $32 trillion over 10 years. And Koch Foundation said, well, we're spending $49 trillion now. So it's kind of funny, but they never ask, conservatives never ask how you're going to pay for it when we talk about like the F-35, that's never really been used for anything. I mean, if we went back and got all that money back, okay, we could cancel all the student debt, okay, we can cancel, all these medical bills. You could say, anybody that's got medical bills, we'll just pay it off and all this stuff. We could build schools, we could do so much stuff. All that money is squandered. The Middle East wars, okay, that's like, what, $7 trillion now, or that was last year. I mean, think about this, but nobody ever says, how are we going to pay for that when we talk about, defense spending and everything else? And I tell people, Bernie's the most fiscally responsible person on there, because everything that he proposes benefits Americans, American families. And that's the part that everybody's missing. And that's the parts that we've been using at the county fairs. And then we talk about the insurance companies, right? And, you run into a Christian, okay? And they're against it. They're all Trumpers. And I go, aren't you a good Christian? And they say, yeah. And I said, don't you think there's something immoral about an industry that profits off of gambling on the lives of people? And all of a sudden, they're like a deer in the headlights. So our problem is we do not know how to message back. Conservatives had 30 years of being programmed, and where we get confounded all time is most of the people that support this, when they're challenged, they don't know how to come back. And we have to teach our Democrats how to respond to all these accusations of socialism, communism, and all that stuff, because it's nonsense.
Peter, you're the Democratic committeeman from McHenry County, and first of all, has the Bloomberg campaign reached out to you? They've been reaching out to politicians throughout the state of Illinois since Bloomberg announced. Have they found their way to you yet?
No, but I've been to several party meetings up in Mchenry, down in Kane County and stuff, and the Bloomberg people have shown up, and we know a couple of them in McHenry County that have been recruited. So he's definitely out to buy the election, but I don't think it's going to work.
Train.
Say that again?
The free cash train.
The free cash train. Is he having an appeal out in McHenry County? Does he have people who are turning to him for all the reasons that they think he's more electable?
I'm not seeing it, but I mean, he just announced jumping into the race 2-3 weeks ago, officially. So
there's a little more than that, but yeah, he's a relatively recent. As I keep saying, tonight the debate, he will be his first appearance on the debate stage. They changed the rules. The Democratic Party changed the rules to allow him an appearance on the stage. They took away the requirement. There was a fundraising requirement that they took away. He's self-funding his campaign, so he doesn't have to appeal to a great base of fundraisers as the other candidates do. It's interesting. I read this story. Elizabeth Warren, doesn't get a lot of talk these days. Peter, I think the last time on the show we were talking about whether you were going to support Elizabeth Warren or you were tempted to support her. I know you're a Bernie person, but anyway, Elizabeth Warren was saying, "I'm still in the race, and it's to prove it." She was talking about how she was going to double down harder to raise money. And I was just like, wow, what an advantage that Michael Bloomberg had. Michael Bloomberg doesn't have to spend any time ever raising money. Michael Bloomberg just writes the check. Elizabeth Warren is on the phone trying to get people to raise money so she can compete with just a fraction, to raise the money for just a fraction of what Michael Bloomberg has. Unbelievable advantage he has. And that is, I do think, causing a lot of Democrats to move to him. They're just being, as they would say, pragmatic, Peter, Janko. You understand? They just, the man's got the money, can finance the campaign. We're going to go with him.
Well, you say pragmatic, I say bought. So,
two different ways of looking at the same thing. Peter, Janko in the studio, Lynn Gray in the studio. We're going to take a break, come back and talk local issues in McHenry County.
So you both dismiss the notion that you are in any way insiders.
Well, look, I'm not a person who decided that I would climb the ladder of the political party, the corrupt political party. I don't hold the title of committeeman, central committeeman, boss of the party. Those are the credentials of an insider. In the positions that I have held, first as a public employee during the term of Richard M. Daley, I worked for the police department, for OEMC, for the procurement department, and I took on and solved tough challenges and, frankly, tasks that a lot of people shied away from. And to suggest, let me just finish. And to suggest that somehow that makes me something other than what I am, the one thing I am is a person who took on Rahm Emanuel. I didn't stay on the sidelines until the Goliath was slayed. I stepped up because I knew that our city needed leadership and to bring to the table voices that needed to be heard. I wasn't afraid of Rahm.
You know, I grew up poor too. That's not the point. The point is what you choose to do with your time and talent as an adult. I was a teacher. I worked for not-for-profit organizations. I was a staff person in the Harold Washington administration. I've been an alderman. I'm president of the county now. And let me just say, while I was doing that, for the last 13 years, she has been an equity partner, that's an owner of a law firm that defends big tobacco, that defends big pharma, that defends environmental polluters. She herself was one of the attorneys that defended Merrill Lynch against discrimination suits by African Americans.
Let me say something.
No, let me finish. I listened to you. Let me finish.
You criticize my law firm. You just took a donation from one of my partners 2 days ago.
Everybody's going to get a chance to talk.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home.
Peter, Janko, Lynn Gray in the studio from Mchenry County. Democrats from Mchenry County. They're running for office up there. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Before we do, you got an update?
Absolutely, I do. Right now, posted at thechicagoreader.com or just chicagoreader.com. It's the latest column from our very own Ben Joravsky. Ben, tell us a little bit about
the wit and wisdom of Michael Bloomberg, that column.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with that column, and already got a shout out from a gentleman here in the Sun-Times building. He really
Bandana Bob.
Bandana Bob enjoyed it. Had a little fun with that one, and I was just pointing out, a lot about Michael Bloomberg's past is emerging as as the campaign unfolds. Investigative reporter from the Washington Post did a deep dive on some of the more upsetting things that Michael Bloomberg has said about women down through the years. And there's some parallels, I hate to say it, to the attitude that Donald Trump has expressed down through the years. So I was just talking, centrists view Michael Bloomberg as the answer for the Democrats as they face Trump. I just want people to realize, well, what are you signing on to? And maybe you should get Michael Bloomberg to address his past in a realistic way before you just give him a blank check, so to speak, and just rally behind him because he's got lots of checks he can write. So I had a little fun. The wit and wisdom of Michael Bloomberg is an allusion to a booklet that some of Michael Bloomberg's friends gave to him as a birthday present back in 1990, D.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, a long time ago, his 48th birthday. And it includes all these quotes that really obnoxious quotes, to put it mildly, that Michael Bloomberg made. So that's Michael Bloomberg is on my mind.
So there you go. Before you decide you're going to vote Bloom, no matter whom, read the Chicago Reader article from Ben Joravsky, get a little knowledge. And after you're done with that, reading the column, guys, check out our new weekly special. It's something that we call Beyond the Column, where we take an even deeper dive into the column from Ben Joravsky in the Chicago Reader, and we talk all about the wit and wisdom of Michael Bloomberg. We talk about that one as well, and we also take a dive into Ben Joravsky column past. Be on the lookout for it tonight. I got to edit it. I'm going to edit it tonight, and I'm going to throw it up there. We go all the way back to 1995 in a column that Ben wrote back in 1995 for the Chicago Reader. It's a good time. It's called Beyond the Column. Find it at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. And be sure to read that column from Benny J.
That's correct. Dennis has a lot of fun with this. He comes over to my house. We do this recording from my house looking out over the alley and over the railroad tracks, and the trains are coming by.
You live literally right next to the Brown line. So we'll be doing the show, and all of a sudden you're...
And
it's kind of cool. It gets like a city vibe.
It is fun. We have a little fun with the trains. But and so Dennis plucks a column from the past, Lynn and Peter, that he doesn't tell me which column he's going to take. I've been writing columns for the Reader since 1984. So there's a lot of columns he could choose from. And so generally he tries to get a column from that day or this time and year.
It's from February 23rd, 1995.
And so then he unveils it to me. Do you remember this column? And do you remember something you did in 1995? And, sometimes this particular column I remembered, and there's a Blago connection. We've been talking Blago all day, because the column is about an automatic race in the 35th Ward where Richard Mell, Blago's father-in-law and his patron saint in politics, there would be no Blago without Richard Mell, politically speaking. It was Richard Mell who gave Blago the support politically and financially he needed at a very early age, that pushed him to the head of the line on the Northwest side. Blago's ambition and talents took over from there, led him to the State House. But there would be no Blago without Richard Mell. So this column talks a little bit about Richard Mell's impact on the automatic race.
And real quick, I said we'd give an update on what went down in the city council meeting today. I have one update here. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Woman Spielman. Drivers who park, stand, or otherwise encroach on bus and bike lanes would have a greater chance of getting caught under a mayoral crackdown proposed today to ease downtown congestion, speed bus travel, and reverse a decline in bus ridership. Mayor Lori Lightfoot introduced an ordinance that would allow parking enforcement aides to take a picture ka-chink, of the encroachment and mail the violation, with fines ranging from $60 to $150. I'd be broke with either one of those, to the address of the license plate holder.
We'll have Dave Glowatz, Mr. Bike, coming on the show on Friday to talk. He was at the meeting today. He's gathering all sorts of tape of it, a recording of it, with the orations that the alderman makes. So, and he's a big bike advocate, so it'll be great to hear what he has to say about this. And that'll be on Friday's show. Mr. Bike will be here. All right, we have Lynn Gray and Peter Janko in the studio. Lynn, I neglected to mention that you're a candidate for office. Tell folks where you're running and what are the issues.
Well, I'm a candidate for McHenry County Board, District 5. And District 5 is the second largest district when you come to square acres. The more populated areas are smaller. But I'm running because there aren't enough people making decisions with backbones. And too many people yield to the status quo. And decisions get made that do not benefit the citizens, but they benefit the 1% and the very few. And that is, what's been happening on a national level has been happening on a microcosm level in every county across the country. And so I had no intention upon running for county board, but I did run for recorder of deeds in 2016. And I lost that race. And it was very unfortunate that I lost that race because the man that I lost to then went and ran for the county clerk position. And he won that race as well. So now we only have one person doing the two full-time jobs. And we have had some severe election issues to the point where I believe the State Board of Elections is going to be involved in this next one, from what I've heard. So when Peter Janko and I met, I was volunteering for the Democratic County Clerk candidate. His name was Drew Georgie, and I was his campaign coordinator. When the 2018 cycle ended, it took me about 2 days to recuperate, and then I was wondering what should we be doing next, and that's when Peter and I started working on getting funding for the passenger rail service from Rockford to Chicago. And that kind of accumulated with a line item on the budget for $275 million to fund that project.
$275 million. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
Not which budget? The state budget?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, well, not the McHenry County, like $275 million.
No, this is Rockford to Chicago.
Yes. No,
so it's going to go Winnebago, Boone, McHenry, Kane, and then into Cook. There'll be a stop in each county.
All right, that's good news. Yeah, Peter Janko's a big advocate of transit travel. I've been on the show many times talking about that. Peter, what race are you running for? What are the issues there?
I'm running for state representative up in the 63rd. One of the reasons I got involved with the Amtrak is because we have an aging population, and I'm going to steal something from Marie Newman here. But we have an infrastructure desert in much of McHenry County, the southwestern part of it. We have a lot of older people who can't get around. They need more public transportation. It's totally, inadequate. We have the McHenry County, or the McHenry Township Board decided to eliminate the senior and handicap bus service. So instead of getting better in its worth, and instead of going back to the Lori Lightfoot with the transit problem in Chicago, the other thing is public transportation is not affordable. I've seen it up in McHenry County. Every time they do a fare increase, we lose riders. So you can't win that way. And if CTA is losing money, if Metro is losing money, it's because their fares are unrealistic, and we as a society actually need to fund our public transportation better, because that's how, we reduce congestion, we reduce wear and tear on the roads, So, either way, we're going to pay for it. And then the other issue that I recently latched onto is, I've always been an advocate for property tax reform, so we need to change our school funding formula. and there's a lot of other people working. But my own cause is up in our district. Our current incumbent is Republican State Rep Steve Reich, and he came out recently with what he calls AJ's Law, which is HB 4886. And essentially what it is he wants McHenry County to create its own DCFS clone, which I think is a nonsensical idea because for several reasons. Okay, one is McHenry County only makes up 2.5% of Illinois' population. Okay, and that 2.5% represents 307,000 citizens, of which 77,000 are children under 18. Okay, now Reich's vision talks about 12 to 15 caseworkers. Okay, one of the biggest problems that DCFS has is, JB, I see two numbers, either 200 were hired or 300 were hired, I don't know. But that's in addition to the people we have. Mm-hmm. And there's not enough, okay? So now, if you take Steve Reich's plan, 12 to 15 caseworkers, okay, and divide that into number of children, if there's 12 caseworkers, that's 1 per 6,400 children in McHenry County. How the hell can anybody think that that's a good idea and that it's going to work? So what we need to do is we need to fix DCFS, and there's a lot of structural problems with that. And if I get elected, I'm going to do what I can, as well as the property tax thing, as well as public transportation. But, yeah, we need more people to advocate for kids. And just to wrap this up real quick is we had our county board meeting last night, and 2 people commented on this, and nobody in McHenry County supports this. And part of it is people are tired in McHenry County of being guinea pigs because there's several McHenry County only bills or laws that have been passed. Jack Franks is behind that, and that's got people very riled up because for no other reason, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, nobody likes to be the test case or the guinea pig for potential failed problems.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of my big issues, too, about these McHenry County-only bills that are coming out is why are we being targeted and why are we being used as the proverbial sacrifice? Yeah, that's not a very winning tactic.
Peter mentioned Jack Franks, and we're at the end of time here. That's a whole other show. Jack Franks, longtime political powerhouse in this neck of the woods, a state rep for many years, then the ally of Michael Joseph Madigan. And as some of our longtime listeners know, Peter Janko ran against the Jack Franks machine, if you will, for committee and was victorious, and then had his meeting with Madigan, one of the great moments of the last couple of years, as far as I'm concerned. Madigan showing how every vote is precious to Michael Joseph Madigan, met with Peter Janko, even though you were an opponent of Jack Franks.
Yes.
And anyway.
And like you said, that's a whole nother story. But just to fill people in, because I forgot to mention what the AJ law is all about. Mm-hmm. There's a 5-year-old child that was murdered by his parents. And there's plenty of stories all over, so just Google AJ Freund, and you can see the stories. It's a pretty sordid story. And it's something that we need to make sure doesn't happen again. And the way it's not going to happen again is, we have to put the hammer down on DCFS. We've had a couple people fired from the Woodstock office as a result of mishandling it. But
one of them is still sitting on the county board.
So there's a lot more people at DCFS that need firing. And
yeah, that's the A.J. Freud story. The murder story happened last year. It was a very horrific story in the state of Illinois. And, the reverberations are still being felt. Governor Pritzker was talking about in his budget address today.
Yeah, his body was buried right within Woodstock city limits. It was in my district. And I know the exact intersection that was described in the newspaper articles and have driven by it thousands of times over my life. You think about a 5-year-old boy being killed in a horrendous way and then taken and left in a shallow grave. It doesn't leave pretty images.
That's Lynn Gray, Peter Janko as well in the studio. Thank you very much for stopping by. I also want to thank Billy Branch and Monroe Anderson earlier in the show. It's been a busy show. We've had a lot of issues we've discussed, national, state, and local, D. We've covered it all.
Peter Janko. Hey, Peter Janko.
Yes.
Vote for Pete. And by the way,
very appreciative of Peter.
By the way, I had
not
Pete
that
for
Indiana Pete. This Pete.
Yeah, right. I had it first. I had it 2 years ago.
Pete for Illinois.
Yep.
Peter Janko was the guy who brokered, if you will, my one and only interview with Michael Joseph Madigan. I will always appreciate Peter Janko for that. I've been covering politics in this town since the 80s, and it took Janko to get that
We got to get you
done.
Bernie next.
Yeah, give me Bernie next. Well, that would be something.
Don't tease us. All right, we have someone on the live stream chat that actually wanted to talk to you guys here. It says here, is there a website to read about your guys' issues further, the Mchenry issues? Any websites you can refer people to?
Right now, yeah. I mean, go to PeteForIllinois.com. It's not on there now because this AJ thing just kind of popped up recently, and we're having a hard time keeping up. But I'm very easy to find. Just type in to Google Pete, just PETE, the number 4, Illinois, and .com. Well, you don't even have to do that. I mean,
just pop up, yeah.
It'll just pop up. So my Facebook page is there. My web page is there. Facebook is more current. So that's where you can find
PeteForIllinois.com.
And you'll see this picture of Pete with his "You Bet Your Ass I'm a Democrat," and it shows the donkey.
Good times,
he's got a million. Peter
Good
Janko
times.
with the milk carton and those T-shirts.
Yeah, we use the same donkey. That's we call it the bucking donkey.
The bucking
No,
donkey.
that's the kick-ass donkey.
Oh, the kick-ass donkey.
And I changed that because I had the original donkey that the Democratic Party and right-wing blogs started saying, "Oh, look, it's another lazy-ass Democrat," and I kind of took offense to that because I'm anything but lazy. At least I hope I come across that way. So no, I'm a kick-ass Democrat.
All right, Peter Janko, kick-ass Democrat. Lynn Gray, another kick-ass Democrat. Billy Branch, Monroe Anderson, and of course the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. And as Peter and Lynn can tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. That's you, Dr. Doobie. Give yourself a raise. Take it up petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
My name's Dennis. And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Like I said, tonight, be on the lookout for this week's Beyond the Column, where we talk more about Ben's column on Michael Bloomberg. It's going to be at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Downloaders, you know we live stream this program.
That's correct.
Yes, it is true. Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time. Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Reader website, and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. When you're on that YouTube channel, join the live stream chat if you dare. No, it's a good time. Go check it out, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Big problems become big problems when you let small problems sit.